Welcome back to Your Real Estate Voice with Barb Schlinker, the weekly radio show that informs and educates you on how to buy or sell real estate with the host of the program, Barb Schlinker, the owner broker of Your Home Sold Guaranteed Realty. Now, Barb, many home sellers fear that inspection. Many people think that most buyers want to purchase the home as is. What are some of the red flags that home sellers need to prepare for when they're selling their home?
Well, Richard, the typical process when a home seller puts their home on the market is basically, you're marketing, you're showing, and then you finally get a contract. That's a happy time, but then they're not done yet. They're going to bring in an inspector to check out the house. And here's the thing, in the state of Colorado, there is no license to be an inspector. Now, they do license to test for radon gas. That's it, but not the systems on the house. So what we see, even if there's been multiple inspections on the home, I've had homes go through 2 or 3 inspections, and each time the different inspector asked for different stuff, and some was legit and some was not legit. So most sellers think that the deal is done and it's sold as is. But then the buyer comes in and says, okay, we'll take the house, but we want this, we want that, and some are reasonable and valid, and some are way off base. So, and I've actually had agents tell me, I had one time that asked for $1,000 concession. And I just asked him, I said, are you really going to blow up this deal over $1,000? He goes, no, but I had to ask for something. So it is kind of a way that real estate agents sort of justify their value to say, look, I got you a discount on the house, and look, I got you stuff on the inspection. And I don't agree with that. Personally, I think what buyer agents should be doing is getting the house that they want. Help them get the house. Don't get in the way. And it happens all the time. Now, most home sellers assume that their home is sold as is. And the inspection is not the time for the buyer to get new stuff. They don't get new windows. They don't get new granite counters. I've had pretty much everything be requested by buyer's agents. And there's a whole bunch of different systems that get scrutinized on an inspection. The typical ones are roof, furnace, water heater, plumbing. And let me just say something about plumbing. These inspectors will go around and turn on every single faucet in the house at the same time and leave it running while they're doing their inspection. Now, who lives like that? I don't think that's normal. Somehow they manage to fill up the sinks, cause an overflow. Oops, there's a drip. Oh, there's a leak under the sink. And actually, there is no leak. It's just that they created an overflow where the little hole in the sink went over. So we see that an awful lot. Furnaces, typically furnaces should last 22 to 30 years. Some don't last that long, but I say a majority of them last a long time. So if the furnace age is beyond what they call the useful life, same with water heaters, which is 8 to 10 years, the inspectors might recommend repair replacement. Now, I would always bring in a third-party professional in the trade to look at that, because sometimes the inspectors are right and sometimes they're just way off. I love how the inspectors deem water heaters dead at age 8. Our water heaters lasted well over, I think it was like 22 years before I finally said, okay, let's not take the risk anymore and go ahead and replace them, even though they worked. Electrical panels. So I see a lot of times where the inspector will ask for a new electrical panel because the panel is a certain brand. There's 1 or 2 brands that could be fire hazards if they weren't properly built, but they're also in older homes. And in older homes, the requirements for more electrical stuff has gone up over the years. So what happens is people overload these circuits that really can't handle it, and it could create a fire hazard. Sewer and septic are my 2 favorites. So here's the thing. This started probably in 2018. that the inspectors all of a sudden decided that they're going to run a sewer scope down. Initially, they did it down toilets and down tubs without permission. They just come in with their big rope, and run a camera down there and scratch up the appliances. I've had them rip vinyl flooring. I've had them pull a toilet and not properly reseat it and cause a leak. I've had them drop stuff down the sewer line. My favorite one was last year, where the guy used a fisheye lens down a sewer line. So the shape of the lens was almond. The shape of the video was almond shaped, when in fact the sewer line was perfectly round. So that guy went on to convince two plumbers to put together a bid between $9,000 and $13,000 and convince them, oh, the sewer line's crushed. We need a new sewer line. And we got these two big expensive bids, and almost convinced the seller that there was a problem, till he brought in his own legit plumbers. And they're like, yeah, there's nothing wrong with the sewer line. So I don't know why they do this. Oh, another one regarding the sewer line that drives me nuts is some agents will bring in not a plumber, not an inspector, but an excavation company to check the sewer line. So, Richard, what do you think an excavation company does for a living?
They would dig and fill and dig and fill and dig some
Yeah,
more.
they dig holes. Why would you ask them if it needs a new sewer line? What do you think they're going to say? So I had to change the way I do business. I started with my inspection policy, where I'd send this document to the buyer's agents and just outline the rules on inspections. Here, you can't do this. I don't let them pull toilets without a plumber doing it. There's a lot of rules. The problem is, I'm just Mrs. Real Estate Agent. I'm not a party to the contract. Nobody cares what I say. And I don't even think that they're reading it, to be honest. I don't think the agents are reading it. And that happened last year when we had a septic. Well, what happened was it was a ranch style home with a finished basement. And in the ranch style home, the inspection objection that came back was that the basement toilet was missing. So when I'm presenting this to the seller, he goes, well, you know what? That's kind of funny, because I think I just used that toilet yesterday. So I really don't know how the basement toilet would be missing. And he came up with this picture. It was really funny. And the picture was of the toilet down there in that bathroom. And he had taken the silicone mat and pulled it under his knees, so he's all comfortable when he pulls the toilet, checked the sewer line. Then he reseated the toilet, and the mat was stuck underneath the toilet. So I'm just, and right behind that bathroom was a sewer clean out. He didn't need to pull a toilet. So because I got in cat fights with agents about whether or not I can tell them that they have to bring a plumber to check the sewer line, I started having to suggest that the sellers put it in their contract. That way the buyer knows full well, and they don't have to listen to the real estate agent say whatever she wants to say. So septic systems are even more involved. In El Paso County, they require that if you're selling a property, you have a septic system inspected. And if the tank is more than 30% full, it has to be pumped. And then you have to apply with the county. It's almost $400 to pay the county to evaluate the inspection that you did on the septic system, that costs another $600. And that is an obligation on the seller to do that. That's what the county put in their document. So you can't make the buyer do it. And if it's a system that has failed, it could be months and months before this gets done. I had one home seller a couple of years ago. They initiated the process late March, and it didn't get finished until July, even though we had a buyer, and they had big holes in the ground. And basically the process is you have to bring in and do a soils test if it needs a new septic system. And then the engineer has to design the plan based on the soils test. Then it has to get a permit from the county. All that takes a lot of time. So I would absolutely get ahead of checking your sewer line. For roofs, I would say a majority of houses, at least 2 out of 3, 4 out of 5 homes have some little issue with the roof. Some need roof replacement, some need a minor repair, whatever. Most of the roofing companies will come out and inspect it and certify it for free if it doesn't need work, but I would get ahead of that. Some other things that come under inspection besides, pulling toilets apart would be of course, the electrical system. And if you have a well, if the buyer is supposed to be paying for the inspections, not the seller, with the exception of the septic system. But if it's a well system, then for some loans, like a VA loan, they have to test the water to make sure the water doesn't have bacteria or metals. Those tests take time. So I always try to put in my counter, hey, you guys, make sure you get those tests done early so it doesn't delay the closing. My name is Barb Schlinker. I'm the broker owner of Your Home Sold Guaranteed Realty and the host of this show. And we're talking about how you can avoid contract failures on inspections and just some of the problems that we run into on that piece of the home sale process. When we come back, we're going to talk about some best solutions to help you pass your home inspection that you can do in advance. Richard?
You're listening to Barb Schlinker of Your Home Sold Guaranteed Realty. If you are interested in selling your home and want to get in touch with Barb, that number, 719-301-3900. And we're talking, Barb, about how to avoid the red flags on home inspections for sellers. Barb, what are some of the other home inspection issues that you've seen come up through the years?
Well, in general, don't trust what the inspector says as gospel. Bring in a professional in the trade, because a lot of times it's a different story when you bring in somebody that's actually licensed to handle it. And they use some interesting tools. I call them inspector gadget. So they've got infrared detectors that only measure changes in temperature, but from their infrared detectors, they infer that, oh, there must be a plumbing leak. And that isn't necessarily true. They'll demand mold remediation when they haven't tested for mold. I even had one guy come in the house and wave this mold wand. So I see all kinds of crazy stuff. Don't let them get by with it. Make sure you bring in your own professionals in the trade. And don't worry about an appraisal. Appraisal, generally there are some repairs that could be required on an appraisal. But if the buyer's getting a VA or an FHA loan, you might have to worry about broken windows, missing outlet covers, missing stair rails, that kind of stuff, safety issues. It's not that difficult to pass those inspections. But at the end of the day, the best way to get this done is to do it in advance. So what we recommend our home sellers do is do a pre-inspection. We call it a certified pre-owned home. We get ahead of all those issues. That way, when they go on the market, they have confidence. They know what the issues are. They have time to address them. They have time to negotiate for the best contractors. And that way they have the best outcome. To find out more, give us a call at 719-301-3900. We will always give these free in-home consultations on what to do and what not to do to get your house ready for sale. We'll go over all the cost, what your home will sell for, and also what you'll put in your pocket when it sells, as well as bring cash offers. So give us a call at 719-301-3900. And to find out on our free report, the 11 things you should know to pass your home inspection, go to barbhasthebuyers.com and click the free report button. Richard?
You're listening to Barb Schlinker of Your Home Sold Guaranteed Realty. And if you're thinking of making a move, simply call Barb. The number is 719-301-3900, or go online to barbhasthebuyers.com. We'll take a short break. When we come back, we'll be discussing the best way to sell a house fast in today's market, plus Barb's hot new listings. Stay tuned for those.